All right, let's take a look at what we're going to do now. We're going to take our sword, which I've just played with some more textures on. Not real crazy about it, but it works. And we're going to come into and put this into Unity. So I've exported the textures and I've set them up so they are in my class folder here. Week 14, Unity stuff. Not those, but these. These are my textures. There's my actual FBX that uses those textures, so they're all set up. Next time I'll show you how to set up the environment a little bit more, but let's just talk about getting stuff in here. How hard is it to get this stuff in here? Well, here's the deal. We have our weapons folder. We're just going to grab our clean FBX and throw it right in that folder. You'll see it imports it in right there. Let me shrink this down a little bit. Like that. And then we, oh yeah, I did one thing different, but I'm going to take these textures that I have right here, and let me open that and come back to this. These textures that I have right here, just drag them into the textures folder real quick. Okay. I did change one thing in here. If you ever lose one of your windows, like I have missing windows here, you may notice it's a little bit different than yours. You can go to General and put in your the missing window, and you'll see I had it up. I put my scene and stuff on the top screen, just so it's easier to control. But yours more looks like this, I think, except for this extra window which I showed you yesterday. Okay, so now I've got this weapon that's in the game. It's not in the world, but it's in the game. So I need to put it in the world. So let's go ahead and drag Gladius Clean straight into this window here. This is the world. This is the game world. This is the game environment. This is what gets built. And you just drag this and you throw it in there. And then if I push F, it zooms in on it. Now, what we may notice right away, if I turn it around, maybe there's better lighting. Nope. What we may notice, and let me make this a lot bigger here. There. Okay. What we're going to notice is that it's gray and ugly and yay. Okay. So how do we fix that problem? Well, if you look at this object, once I select it, the orange I highlight ignoring that, you'll see that it says it has a mesh renderer and a texture. And if I open up that texture, that material, it says that it's got all these options, but they're all grayed out. What the heck? Why? Well, when you import stuff inside of the Unity, if you click here, you'll see the inspector changes. And it gives you a bunch of options. Right now, if we go to animation, we can turn that off. And if we go to materials, we can see that it's embedded materials, okay? We could change that, and we could do a bunch of stuff to it. But we're just going to make our own material and add it to it. And then I also want to click this button right here, generate UV lights, in case we decide to make it baked, which we'll talk about again later. Once you get those two things selected, so the import materials, you turn off the animation, you turn on the bake, and everything else really doesn't matter, but we'll leave it on, and we'll say apply. It'll take a second, and it applies it. Now, the textures kind of look like they're there, but they're not really there. That's because it's looking at one of the textures. If we come back and look at this again, you'll see it's saying it's using this albedo, and that's something that I did earlier, and it's funny that it still sticks because I've restarted a whole new file for this class. Anyway, so if I look in the material folder, there's nothing there. This is where we used to import the materials. When I was telling you that you import, it would make a material and textures. Well, we're going to make our own this time. So we're going to say create by right-clicking in the project folder. We're going to right-click and say create. We're going to come down to material. It's that easy. We'll call this sword. Okay. Now, how do we get this texture onto this object? That's pretty easy. If you look right here, it'll say black, and that's the texture you'll see right there, or the material. I keep saying texture, shader. If I close the material, just in case you have it like this and you don't see that, just realize that it's right there. Okay? So you just have to open it up, and then all you have to do is come over to your materials and click. I'm holding it. See how it says no, you can't drop it where it is. So you can't drop it over. You can drop it over here, but I'm going to keep clicking and holding it, and look, bam, it says plus. If I push that right there, now sword. Now I have an all-white sword because my default setup for this is just, if we open this up, there's nothing in it. Perfect. That's what we want. We make sure this is 100% white. That's good. Now we go to our textures. And we take our albedo transparent and we throw it on here. Okay, and then we take our patina AO and we throw it in the occlusion because we made that extra map. And we take the metal smoothness and we throw it into metallic smoothness. And it's starting to look more and more like our sword. And then we take the gladius patina normal and we throw it in the normal map. And now we're getting really close. We can also throw our height map in here to the height area, like that. And we can turn that up and down, and it does some, but it's not like going to be a ton of stuff to it, but we'll just leave it at default. Okay, so we've got this sword. It kind of looks like what we had before. If we keep turning around, and the moving around in the environment is, you know, panning is the right mouse button. Or zooming in and out is Alt and the right mouse button. There's also other ways inside of the engine you're supposed to, when you're moving around, so we'll talk about that eventually. Pan is also the middle mouse button, and if I select this object and rotate, there it is. So it kind of looks right, but you know, it's still not quite exactly what I thought. Maybe the normals aren't as good as I want. You can look and see one of the problems is the normal map. It says this texture is marked as a normal map. So what does that mean? Anytime you import a material in here, if you select, or a texture in here, if you select it, you'll see there's the texture info. Well, the only one that's different is this one, and it's saying its texture type is default. We want to make that a normal map, and then say apply. And there it is. So it's a little bit closer what we're thinking. Now let's go back to the material on here. You can see our normal map is set to 1. We could also go to 2, really push it up if we wanted to. If we wanted to really push it out, then we could. I don't really think it needs that. I'm just pointing out you can. All right. So the last thing we really should do to make this work is a little bit procedurally complicated, but I'm going to walk through it and you can slow down and go through it yourself. And you can find the same way that they do this on the web. It's listed out there. Okay, so right now our world does not have, for example, the same thing as this. So if I go back and go to F10 and then I tell it to, yeah, and then I pick the texture it's going to use, like not panorama, and hear my computer taking off again. Let me see. Let's do an indoor one, like bus garage. Okay. See, it doesn't look the same. And it didn't look the same before either, but if I'm going to close this real quick. We're going to do this next time for other stuff. But let's go back to Unity here. Okay, so it doesn't look the same. So what we need to do is we need to import that PBR map inside of here and then do a couple quick little things. So how do we do that? Well, we're going to come over here to the art folder and we're going to make a new folder called Skybox. And then we're also, well, next week we'll make a folder called environments. So what we need to do is find that Skybox, this picture it's using, and I'll show you the path to go in there. I installed it on G, my substance. So if I go into my G drive, it'd be your D drive or C drive if it's your default drive. Double click on the program files. Here, open it this way. And then you'll see, oops, I did program x86. We want just program files. You'll see a logarithmic. Open that up. Go to Painter in this case. We're going to go to Resources. We're going to go to, where is it? Shelf, because that's where all our textures are. Go to logarithmic, because it's apparently we need to be reminded where we are. And then we're going to go to Environments. And in Environments, we're going to see Interiors, Exteriors, and Studio. I'm going to go to Interior, and there's Bus Garage, EXR. I'm going to open up that Skybox folder that I just made. I'm going to go back to my Windows Explorer, and I'm going to drag that texture into here. Bam. Now it's sitting right there. So how do we get this to work? Well, by default, there's a few ways to do panoramas in HDR. So how we're going to do it is we're going to make a skybox out of it. We're going to make a cube map out of it. So we've got to change it. We have that texture selected, and it looks just like it did when we were looking at the normals. If we click on this and we come down to, oops, not that one. If you click on 2D and come down to cube, it gives you a couple more options. The other thing we want to do so it matches substance is you want to come into, which one is it? Hold on, my brain. Mapping, and change it to latitude, longitude, layout. Just like that. And then we're going to say apply. And you'll see it does a second, it thinks. And then it makes this thing a cube now. Okay. So how do we change the skybox? Well, it used to be that you could right click in here, open up a tab, and then there'd be this thing called lights inside of here, lighting. But it's not there anymore. So we have to come to the Windows drop down. We have to go to this rendering drop down and go to light settings. Just click that and it opens up a separate window. The cool thing is we can just throw that tab by clicking on the tab in here and throw it into this tab right there. So we have, you know, the tab open. Okay, so if you notice up here it says default skybox and it's a sphere. What I'm going to actually do is move this over so they're next to each other so we can see the inspector when I'm selecting this thing too. So what I need to do is I need to make a skybox now too, or a skybox material. And just like before, we say create, we say not folder, we say material, and we say garage skybox. And then when we select that, we're going to take this and come up here where it says standard, because that's the standard material sets, and that's where we get all the same albedo and metallic and everything that we get out of substance, PBR stuff. And we're going to come down here to skybox, and we're going to change that to cube map because we just made a cube map. And now all we have to do is drop the bus garage into the cube map. And now our garage bus texture is sitting right inside of our skybox texture or material. We're going to grab that material and throw it into here. And suddenly, it's starting to look a little bit better. Okay? Now we're getting there. A couple of other things we might want to change, and we're going to put this in an environment next week, just a simple environment. I'm not going to go into that too detailed today. Just want to make sure you get this. If we get to it, and we can even do it today. Well, I'm going to take this light, and you can select it over here, you can select it over there, and you can see it's directional. Which means in 3D space, it doesn't matter where it is, it's going to all point in an omnidirectional way. So all I want to do is make sure that the main part of my lighting is coming from the same direction, and it kind of doesn't look like it. So I'm going to, it doesn't matter where it is, I'm just going to rotate it so it's facing this way and that way. And then I'm going to go back to our move tool to make sure I've got it facing the right direction. And that looks kind of close if I look at it here. Yeah, I may want to rotate a little bit more this way. It makes it a little easier. Should have done it from the top the whole time. Oh, I'm going to undo that. I'm going to do it this way. Okay, so it's kind of facing the right direction. We're not making it perfect or anything, but we'll grab our sword again, go to F, and we'll start rotating around, and we'll see if we look at it from the same angle that we are inside a substance, which is kind of like that. It looks really similar. Now, there's a couple other little things we need to tweak. And if we put a ground plane in here, for example, we would see the shadow and everything too. But the other thing we need to tweak is the camera and the settings in the game. Actually, I'm going to leave the camera the way it is for right now. We're just going to come over here and change the player controls here, or the player settings. So go to Edit, Preferences, I always do that. It's Project Settings, and then down to Player. And if I look at the player settings in here, you'll see that the only thing I really want to change is the gamma. I don't want the color space to be gamma, I want it to be linear. Okay, let's see what it does. There we go. Now it's not quite as bright. You can see that kind of stuff, and it also has to do with the lighting. We can tweak this till we're blue in the face, but that's the general idea. If I come in here at this point, if you want to add an object to a Unity file, all you have to do is go to Game Object, say 3D Object, and say, let's say plane, and it makes a plane. Now, since I put the handle at 0, 0, 0, you'll see that it's at, let me change this plane here to 0, 0, 0. It's cutting it off right in the middle of the handle. So let me grab the sword and lift it up, and there we go. Okay, there's one last thing we probably want to do. I don't have a lot of reflective materials, but you want to put this in here just in case you do. In Unity, we can't do the same long-term rendering. Remember how long it took it to render this out when I would just change it a minute ago? We can't do that. We have to fake it. So how do we fake it? Well, in Unity and in game engines, we use what's called a reflection sphere, or something that basically takes a cube map like we have and renders it from that position. So I'm going to come in here and say create light and reflection probe, like that. I'm not even going to mess with it right now, but you'll see what it does. See, it's just using that one picture, and depending on where I am compared to it, it moves the reflection around. And it's not renderable in the game. It's just for reference purposes. And in fact, when I stop clicking on it, actually I'll move behind here. It will stop matching, and you can see I kind of have the texture in the right direction here. One of the problems is this is a really well lit area compared to Substance. So I have that, and if I click off of it, you see it turns white. Now I'm going to click that again real quick and change the gizmo to not be 3D icons. So when I click off of it, it's tinying out of the way. Okay, so now I've got my reflections, and if I turn this around like this, you can see that it's going to give me the reflections. If I had a super reflective thing, it would show more, but there you go. So right now, the reason it's a little bit shinier is because I'm using one light, and if you can tell, there's light from every direction here. So it's kind of faking it for us, but it's still, you know. So if I come in here and take it out, you can just drag it out, and then I was off my screen right now. I'm just making it bigger so we can come down here and look at it. So there it is. There's that one, and there's that one. Pretty dang close. There's a couple of other things we can tweak. There's a couple of other things we can do. Not worried about that at this point. I'm just looking at it saying, yeah, that's pretty close to what we have in here. What we're going to do is you're going to take some of your objects, your swords, and we're going to put them in a room. It's not much different than this, but we're going to build it inside of 3D Studio Max. And we'll do that tomorrow, because some of the cool things you can do with Substance in here. Let me drag this. I'll show you quickly. Don't expect you to do this for homework or anything. Let me move this over. Oh, come on. Don't be a jerk face. Okay, so I have my sword. I have this ground plane selected. I can also, you know what, I'm not even going to show you because I don't want to add more detail to this. And once I do this, I have to do it again by a new material. So that's it. That's the whole import I'm expecting from today. We'll walk through it. You'll have time in class, and we're going to go from there.